My friends, this was recorded yesterday. I guess he's in Vancouver. He's somewhere cool because it's pretty cool because he's got a cool neck bar on jacket. Anyways, he's talking about some stuff that's really, I mean, not concerning for me, but wondering how that's going to work. Like, how fast, like he's talking all these talking points, how fast can he enact our government to do these things? I don't think it's going to happen fast. I know that, down the States, they got a president that can just do the stamp and have it done tomorrow, and that's just what's going to happen. But in order for this guy to do what he's talking about, it's going to take some time. It's going to take some work. From what I gather, I'm going to learn more in the next couple of weeks because I am going on a vacation on March the 1st and 2nd because I want to get involved and I want to be interested. Anyways, let's listen to what he's got to say. Other than stop the drugs.
Imagine if the town of Brandon were to vanish, that its 50,000 people suddenly died. That is the size and scope of the fentanyl overdose crisis in the last 9 years of the Carney-Trudeau Liberals. A small, beautiful city like Brandon has vanished from our lives. Since 2016, 50,000 Canadians have died of overdoses to opioids, 9 in 10 of whom have died as a result of fentanyl.
No. The number's higher. Just to let's get that clear. The number's a lot higher.
More Canadians have died of opioid overdoses in the last 9 years than died fighting for Canada in the Second World War. They are real people. Brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, fathers, mothers, friends, and thousands more are still suffering. Countless of them are in homeless encampments, living in the hell of addiction and homelessness.
Please watch my last couple of videos, especially the one about the SROs to David Eby. It's a mess.
It wasn't like this before Liberals radically liberalized drugs.
Yeah.
We know what they did. They passed C5 to allow traffickers to serve their sentences in their living rooms. They eliminated mandatory prison time. They opened up our ports and our borders. 99% of the shipping containers that enter our country, 99% of those shipping containers come in without any inspection at all.
I wonder what the percentage was prior to that, and even if the percentage was prior to that, who works at the ports? Who makes sure things go across things easily? People that work at the ports. A little bit of gangsterism. They've been making movies about it in Hollywood, but yeah, it doesn't. I understand, bro. Like Pierre, I understand. It's just easier, but like a lot of the drug dealers that used to sell a little bit of a whole bunch of things, now everyone's just selling fentanyl. Like, because that's like everyone's jacked up on fent or methanol, like or meth. That's it. It's fent or meth, and that's it.
For 9 years of the Carney-Trudeau Liberals.
And I don't know why he says Carney-Trudeau now. Why doesn't he just say Liberals? It's just liberal. It's the Liberal government.
Super labs in Canada synthesize using precursor chemical ingredients that come into Canada from China and Mexico through our open border policy. But it's not happening. This is something that looks like an episode of Breaking Bad.
Oh, it's even worse, Let's go over to a couple of other reporters talking to different politicians and what they have to. Let's hear what other people have to say. Pierre, you're great. I love you. I'm going to vote for you. I'll stand beside you. But let's listen to some other people. All right, friends. So this one really gets me. Like, this is global, and God bless them. But like the information that he's going to say right now, I mean, anybody that's in this situation understands that this has been going on for decades. As a matter of fact, I'm aware of a treatment center that started off by way of a guy that started running homes like for drug addicts that needed a place to stay, and now he's actually got a big treatment center. But this guy was getting kickbacks from a pharmacy that was close to him up in like South Van area, and these guys that were getting kicked out of a place called TWC, Together We Can, would go to his place, and then he would collect, like, he would take their whole social assistance check and to say, if you're on any kind of OAT program, you have to go to this dispensary. And everyone was saying it's because he's getting kickbacks. And I know because I found out. And this is a real thing that happens all the time. Let's listen. Like, it's nothing that I don't know, but maybe you don't know, and let's get educated.
See, conservatives are showing off some proof that drugs from the Safe Supply program are ending up on the street. It's a presentation from the Ministry of Health shown to law enforcement agencies across the province, acknowledging the extent of drug diversion. Richard
This has been going on for...
Zussman has more.
An admission of failure.
We have a government that continues to publicly fund a program that is known to be putting drugs into the hands of criminals.
The BC Conservatives making public this Ministry of Health presentation made by the province's Special Investigative Unit directly to police last month, showing the province believes, quote, a significant portion of the opioids being freely prescribed by doctors and pharmacists are not being consumed by their intended recipient.
Now, I honestly don't believe that the pharmacies are aware of this. However, I was down at the Hotel California a couple of weeks ago, maybe about 2 months ago, and me and some of the, like, they hire these Granville Street security people, hosts or whatever they call them, when you're walking up and down the street. And we sat there and we watched this guy go from the Hotel California, and he got in his wheelchair and roll over to the pharmacy, which is next door, which is a new one, and go in and get a whole bunch of blah, 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 blah. And then he went outside, and we basically watched him get into this car. And this guy just had, like, stacks of cash. And okay, so what happened next was kind of crazy, because the cops, they were there, and they actually pulled over a pickup truck with a bunch of people in the truck. You know, there was too many people, not enough seatbelts. And the security guards went over and said, hey, that guy just did this and blah, blah, blah. And then the cops took off, and they ended up getting this guy. And I guess there was, like, a lot of money and a lot of, like, they came back a couple weeks later and told me, holy cow, you can't believe what just happened. I'm like, yeah, I believe it. I see it all the time.
We've heard concerns about diversion from partners, and we have to tackle it. It's a priority. That's why the Ministry of Health stood up a special investigations unit.
The government's prescribed alternatives program.
And here's another thing that just blows me away. People get into position of power, and if they do something wrong, they, like, don't fire them, but they just bounce them over to another job, to the point where they're right off and they're not even in that sector anymore. And as a result, there's another person that bounces in that job. And so every, like, 8 months or a year and a half, these new people, so there's no consistency in the government because everyone moves so fast. I always go back to my brother-in-law that works, he's a big dog with the city of something out in the valley, and we were talking one day about the gentleman that dropped chicken manure or cow manure on the encampment, the homeless encampment years ago. Well, it was a huge deal. It was all over the news. And what had happened is this guy needs to get fired. How dare he do that? And absolutely, how dare he do that, right? He should have actually been helping the people instead of just putting manure on their homeless encampment. But what happened is the guy got pushed to the side, moved ministries, and 3 months later, got a raise. Welcome to the Liberal government.
Has received significant scrutiny. U.S. President Donald Trump mentioned BC directly around his concerns on fentanyl. The investigative unit continues to investigate drugs prescribed to addicts, ending up in the hands of organized crime.
almost unbelievable. And one of the reasons I think that a public inquiry is absolutely necessary.
The presentation also includes active investigations, including more than 60 pharmacies breaking the rules by offering incentives, non-healthcare professionals witnessing the prescription of opioid disorder drugs, pharmacies offering incentives to doctors, housing, and medical professionals.
Now the thing is you know, everyone's a bit guilty of things, you know, and you know, you know, at my end there, when, yeah, it's really sad. It's just, there's too much shit going on. They ultimately just need to wipe opiates right from the pharmacies, and they need to just open up mass amount of treatment centers. I keep saying, open up centers, hire a bunch of people like me to go to the streets to help the people understand if they want to get clean and sober, they can, and you know, not like force them into it, but you know, convince them that this is, you know, there's two ways. Like, so anyways, I'll tell you a short story about a youth I had in my home, in one of my homes in years back. Anyways, he was this kid, and he moved into my home, and he was a teenager, and he was wearing diapers. Now, yeah, there was autism. There was some issues. He moved in, and the doctors had him on all these prescriptions, like, you know, take this for that and this for that, right? So one of them's like a diuretic, like one of them helps him like have movements, one of them stops movements, and this is a true story, okay? So the kid moves in. I don't want to change diapers when the kid's like 12 years old. Like, I don't think you should be on, like, oh, let's try this out. I dated a girl a year or two prior, and they had this kid was, her son had nonverbal autism, and he was wearing diapers anyways. They have this technique about how to make sure the kid can go from like diapers to like natural. So they do this trick over a 10-day period. They basically sit the person down. They say, you have a choice. You're going to either poo-poo in your pants, or you're going to poo-poo in the toilet. And every time you poo-poo in the toilet, we're going to give you a chocolate bar. We're going to give you a little treat, a little bit of sugar. And so 10 days later, usually what happens, right, is the kid, so what happened with me is I did this with this kid, right? And so I sat him down with me and one of my staff, the big dude football player, right? We said, listen, boy, this is what's going to happen. You're going to poop in your pants, or you're going to soup in the toilet. Well, I'm going to sit here with you for the next 2 weeks, 10 days. I'm going to sit with you day and night. I'm going to make sure someone's here for you. Someone's going to work awake overnight to help you, so that if you need to go, you go. You just let us know. I'm going to get you a chocolate bar and a bag of chocolate bars. Well, guess what happened? 10 days later, the kid's like not pooping. Well, holy smokes. So I get a call. Mr. Goodwork, can you please come into the child psychiatric unit? So I went in, and there's 4 psychiatrists, and the guy's mad at me. He's like, hey, I heard that blah, blah, blah is not taking his medication anymore. I'm like, no. Well, why not? Well, what did you do? I've heard that he's not wearing his diapers anymore. What did you do? Like, the doctors are asking me in this like really doctor kind of way, and I've sat in a lot of rooms with a lot of doctors and a lot of psychiatrists. And I looked at the psychiatrist. There was 4 of them in the room. I looked at the head guy, and I looked at him. I said, well, it was quite easy. I just told him that he's had a choice. You know, the next 10 days, he's going to poo-poo in the toilet, or he's going to poo-poo in his pants. And I gave him an incentive, and I stood by him, and I provided love, care, and dedication, and poo-poo no more in his pants. So, like, you can give these people incentives to, like, help them make decisions to, like, no one wants to live on the street. None of those people down there want to live on the fucking street, and everyone's on the street. Stupid government. Come on, David Eby, wake up.
And some community housing staff requiring tenants to go to a specific pharmacy.
This is so stupid. This has been going on forever, and this is our media. This is media. Anyways. Now here's this guy. I actually really like this guy. He does some really good stuff. If there is a CBC reporter, I think he's honestly my favorite. I don't like to get into the political spectrum of who's saying what to who and how come they can change and why do people do what they do. But this guy dives deep. And he actually does some really good stuff. I've not once, maybe once, sort of questioned some stuff that he said, but I want to take you. Let's go through this. This is about this lab, right? That was found. The lab wasn't found. I mean, they knew it was there. They just busted it. I don't know why they took so long, but how did they take so long to get it so big? But anyways, let's listen.
Imagine you live in this tiny rural town of about 1,000 people, about an hour outside of Kamloops, BC.
I took my son in my Range Rover when he was like 6 years old up in the woods back here, by near Falkland. I taught him how to drive. I got pictures. He sat on my lap and he sat down in between my legs so he could touch the gas pedal and the brake and the steering wheel and just like my buddy Jason Beetlestone's father. He taught me how to drive. That was awesome. I was like 11 years old.
One day, you wake up and there are hundreds of police officers swarming a rural property down your street. That property, you find out, is what police call the biggest, most sophisticated drug lab in Canadian history.
Like something out of Breaking Bad.
It's just incredible. It's overwhelming.
People were just really stunned.
The RCMP calls this a super lab, producing an unprecedented amount of illicit drugs. In total, they recovered almost 400 kilos of meth, 54 kilos of fentanyl, that's tens of millions of doses, plus...
Do you like how much this is? I mean, I've known some things, right? So I've known there's some things going on, and they've been bringing these chemicals into Mexico and Colombia at the beginning, and then they brought them up this way through the States, and then they became a problem up here. And now I think because the system down the States, it's harder to get things into the States. It just comes straight to our ports and then down. I know that the port up in Prince Rupert, like 20% of those workers are always in treatment centers. The biggest recovery houses up there in Prince Rupert and Terrace. Anyways, I got so much information in my head.
Smaller amounts of MDMA and cocaine. And that's just the stuff that was ready, waiting to be shipped out. Investigators say this lab had enough source material on hand to potentially triple that output.
These enforcement actions have undoubtedly saved thousands of lives in Canada. It has also served to deny this transnational organized crime group an estimated $485 million in profits.
And this wasn't just about drugs. 400 kilometers away in Surrey, BC, they also say they recovered 46 handguns, 21 AR-15 style rifles, 14 submachine guns, at least 2 50 caliber rifles capable of shooting through concrete walls.
I hope they talk about if these people go to jail, where do they go to jail? Do they play 9-hole golf in Victoria still? Or maybe the Liberals take the golf course away.
Explosives, body armor, and $500,000 in cash.
When they laid them out, it did look like, enough firepower to arm a sizable militia, honestly.
But even all this risks missing the bigger picture, because what also shocked investigators was just how elaborate the whole operation was. What it tells them about who might have been involved and how far-reaching this network might just be.
One person.
Let's go through it. There was one word the RCMP kept using over and over to courtesy of the RCMP. We spoke to the head of the team investigating this super lab, and we reached out to 2 chemists with expertise in illicit drug manufacturing.
Wow, Andrea Holmes, Dewan University. And Richard Hooker, forensic scientist and illicit drug consultant.
Try and break down what exactly was going on here and what makes this lab so sophisticated.
This one certainly had the equipment, certainly had the chemicals on hand and the precursors to continue a high level of production.
Let's start with equipment. Those big green jugs, ingredients are added and
reactors, meaning that there's sort of like a double wall outside that green. That's kind of like a coolant system that keeps the reaction controlled in temperature.
Controlled, by the way, so that it doesn't explode. These are volatile compounds, and this is special.
So this guy's really good, but I'm just going to move up to because it's just repeat stuff. So this is when they figured out that like we needed to bring the precursors here. These guys need to bring in the precursors to make the fent, and you can only get the precursors from China. But now you can make the precursors with the chemicals that people sell, like the companies sell here. And like I said, I've got on record this guy downtown, this dealer that just done his habit. He walks around with 2 pit bulls up and down Granville Street. And I was going to say his name, but you know, he's talking about how he buys one little $100 piece and he turns it into 8 $100 pieces. And that's what he sells every 3 days.
And of a particular concern is the discovery of several tons of unregulated chemicals believed to be used to produce P2P.
P2P is one of those precursors we talked about. It's one of the base ingredients used to make meth. It is a heavily controlled substance, and because of that, it's hard to find. It's also hard to make. So finding evidence that this group was manufacturing P2P from scratch, that's like the RCMP cracking an art heist and finding the Mona Lisa.
You do need to have people who have some chemical knowledge, especially when producing large quantities of chemicals. So you might have what's called a chemical engineer who's been working in industry and he knows what it involves. It could be a very well organized situation.
As most people know from
It's a very well organized situation. God bless. Like, this is media hoopla.